This regular business meeting of the Waco Independent School Board is hereby called to order. All items discussed or voted upon this evening have been posted as required by law. I just want to extend a warm welcome to those present and to our television viewers. This board's purpose is to set goals, listen to reports of the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and to make policy for the district. We're not here to make management decisions or solve problems of individuals. Management is the responsibility of the superintendent and her staff. Just want to ask you right now if you would turn your cell phones to silent. We would really appreciate it just during this time. We really do appreciate the time that you've taken to join us and for your interest in Waco Independent School District. Are there any audience for guests? Did anyone sign up? No one? Okay, and I believe we're moving on to special recognitions.
Good evening, Madam Vice President, Board, Dr. Kincannon. Good evening. Tonight's special recognition, we're going to start off with taking it back a few years. Beginning in 2017, the Waco ISD Career and Technical Education programs selected and honored students who showed outstanding promise and dedication to their academies and fields of study. Each month, the Waco ISD senior is nominated by Waco High and University High School to be considered for the campus's CTE Student of the Month. And from those monthly honorees, each campus selects their campus's CTE Student of the Year, which is followed by the naming of a Waco ISD CTE Student of the Year. In this case, Waco High's 2020-2021 CTE Student of the Year, Jairo Romero Gonzalez in the Academy of Criminal Justice, and University High School's Genesis Santos in the Academy of Education and Training. She was selected as her campus's CTE Student of the Year, as well as the Waco ISD CTE Student of the Year. Congratulations to Genesis Santos there pictured. For more than a decade, David Smokey Smoke of Sikkim 365 Radio has selected and recognized 10 male athletes and 10 female athletes in Central Texas. Honorees are selected for their achievements in the classroom, not just in their respective sports. Now, in order to be considered, there's a couple of ours right there. Candidates must be involved in school clubs and organizations, as well as community events and projects. Student athletes are nominated by their counselors, coaches, principals, and athletic directors. 2 Waco ISD seniors were selected as Smokey's 2021 Academic All-Stars, pictured here. We had 20 students from around the area honored at a banquet held May 19th at the Baylor Club. Here we have Graham Bronstein and Daryl Thomas, Smokey's 2021 Academic All-Stars for Waco ISD. There's the full group of everybody, and there's our 2 students in the group there. The Texas Army National Guard and the Texas High School Coaches Association recognize student athletes' academic performance each year via the academic all-state teams for 12 sports. The head coach of the prospective sport nominates student athletes for academic all-state, and the nominated student must be an athlete, student trainer, or manager in good standing with the team. They consider each student's GPA, class rank, SAT, and ACT score. This year, we have academic all-state golf team Maximus Martinez from University High School and Genesis Santos, of course, Carl Thomas, University High School golf coach. There they are, and you've got a little couple of arrows there for Genesis and Maximus. Congratulations, our academic all-state golf team. Established in 1987, the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards is an independent nonprofit organization working to advance accomplished teaching for all students. National Board certification is available in 25 certificate areas. To become a board-certified teacher, eligible candidates must demonstrate advanced knowledge, skills, and practice in their individual certificate area. ESC Region 12 provides the opportunity for students or for individuals to pursue certifications for serving as a facilitator for National Board certification. In May, it was announced that 7 Waco ISD educators were selected as candidates for the ESC Region 12 National Board Certification Pilot Program. We have Shannon Bullock Paige Stanford, Stephanie Marsteller, Avra Merritt, Amanda Jo Ponder, Jennifer Tacone, and Jeanette Moore-Williams. There they all are. Congratulations to these educators for being NVCT pilot cohort candidates for Region 12. Waco ISD Human Resources Department launched an Employee of the Month program in the spring of 2020, inviting staff from around the district to nominate professional and paraprofessional support staff for their hard work and dedication. Due to a continued number of high submissions for employees, 2 professional staff members, 2 members of our paraprofessional support staff were surprised with the announcement that they had been selected as Waco ISD's Employees of the Month for the month of April. Jennifer Finley, a social studies teacher at Atlas Academy, works to, quote, make our team the best it can be. She is described as a team player, who is willing to help in any area or task that needs to be completed, and as someone who actively compliments her students and colleagues. There she is right there. Mrs. Finley is a former student of her nominator, which makes the nomination even more special. Nominator said, "It is awesome to see one of your former students become such an accomplished teacher. I have loved every moment working with her as a teacher." Congratulations to Ms. Finley. Let me go back there for Ms. Roberson. Math instructional specialist at Waco High School. She was nominated multiple times and is described as both the glue that holds Waco High together and our first mate of the ship at Waco High School. She is dependable, encouraging, a morale booster, and the definition of a strong work ethic. She is a person who wants Waco High School and the students that they serve to succeed and be the best they can be. One of the teachers who nominated her notes she is the model for what Waco ISD looks for in their Employee of the Month nominations. Congratulations to Ms. Roberson. And we have Donna Lovelady and Tommy Trotter. First off, Donna Lovelady from Dean Highland Elementary School, literary aide there. She routinely works above and beyond what is expected or assigned. She can be found taking students out to the greenhouse to check their watermelon seedlings and discussing the plant cycle, greeting students in the morning, assisting with dismissal in the afternoon, and covering lunch periods. She's described as punctual, dependable, a team player, and someone who notices and takes action, but most importantly, as someone the campus loves and appreciates. Congratulations, Ms. Lovelady. Mr. Trotter, head custodian at Waco High School, takes lion pride to heart at his campus. In a normal year, he can be found assisting wherever he is needed, but during the pandemic, this past year and a half, Mr. Trotter has worked to ensure the campus is clean and sanitized for the students and other staff. As a true team player, Mr. Trotter assisted with taking temperatures in the mornings before students entered the building. He is extremely polite and often acts as a tour guide, helping students, parents, or visitors find their way, and he is considered one of the most dependable people on campus. Congratulations, Mr. Trotter. And Waco ISD's theme for the 2020-2021 school year is Empower All, Value All. That's a theme that reflects our mission to provide an educational foundation that empowers and values all. It celebrates learning and growing as students, professionals, and individuals. Waco ISD recognizes that when individuals feel empowered and valued, their ability to overcome challenges, grow, and succeed is strengthened. We are blessed to have scores of community partners who are deeply invested in the district's students, staff, and their success. Each month, the district is recognizing a community partner making a difference with the Waco ISD Award for Outstanding Community Partners. In June, the district is recognizing the Waco Police Department. The Waco Police Department has partnered with and supported the school district in many ways over the years. Officers are regular visitors to multiple campuses on the first day of school to greet students with a smile, a high five, and sometimes a brand new pencil. They've also participated in district-wide events such as pre-K registration roundup and Family Fest, as well as campus-based events including law enforcement swarms to provide students an up-close look at the department vehicles and learn about the officers' duties and responsibilities, as well as a recent First Responders Day and Job Fair held at University High School. Chief Cheryl Victorian accepted the award virtually. Congratulations to the Waco Police Department. We thank them for their continued partnership. Okay, and that will wrap it up this evening. Congratulations again to this month's honorees.
Great. Next on our item is the Superintendent's Report.
Okay, I'll be a little brief for this month than I was last month. I have two items to talk to you about. First is about graduation, and I'll start by telling you that we received some data from TEA regarding our graduation rate for the class of 2020 and our annual dropouts from the 2019-2020 school year. And we had some improvements. It was very positive, validating some of the work to put processes and systems in place for tracking systems for cohorts and leavers, especially for our bilingual special education and homeless student populations, which were required specifically to have interventions by the state. Overall, the district increased our graduation rate by 4.9 percentage points, moving from 77.8% in 2019 to 82.7% in 2020. And obviously our four-year graduation rate increased for all students, but it also increased for students who are homeless, English learners, and/or served by special education. Now, that was for the class of 2020. Our data does always lag behind for graduation rate and dropout data. And you'll recall that 2020 was our group that was impacted by COVID, and we closed in March just before graduation at the end of May. And so there were some special things that happened with that group, including the governor expanding eligibility for individual graduation plans, for students who needed to pass 3 or more end-of-course exams, and the commissioner waiving the 90% attendance rule that was required to earn a credit. So there were some special nuances in there. Our dropout rate at the same time decreased from 2019 to 2020. Overall, we reduced the percentage of dropouts by 1.3 percentage points from 3.8% in 2019 to 2.5% in 2019-2020. And we did see declines for homeless students, English learners, and special education students. So we're pleased with those results, and the bottom line of that decrease in dropout rates for Waco ISD meant that 88 more students stayed in school. And I want to thank Denise Bell and our high school staff who worked really hard last year at the beginning of the school year to get students re-enrolled. They identified PEIMS coding issues, and they made sure that our leaver data was accurate for state reporting. It made a difference. Now that we have the data back, we have identified the need to focus more closely on implementing some of those same tracking systems for middle school students. We had 12 middle school students, which are grades 7 and 8 students, which are recorded by the state, drop out in 2020 compared to 7 in 2019. So we'll need to put the same kind of focus there. And then moving to this year, we expect to graduate 754 students. That's a moving target, as seniors have been working to finish credits, and we're looking forward to doing that. We do know that we have students who didn't earn those credits to the same extent that they normally do due to the lack of engagement in the pandemic, and so we're going to have more students than normal this summer working to finish up their high school diplomas. Any questions about graduation? We've also given you information for both of those ceremonies. You have a seating chart and an event memo there for you, so you have all the details that you need.
I missed that.
I think I stole yours. There you go. You're welcome. Okay, last thing I have is just some data that I wanted to share. The percentage of students attending in-person instruction for the last grading period, the final 6 weeks grading period, is approximately 86%. And our attendance rate for all of our students has been more stable, hovering around 92%. And we're pretty pleased with that, considering the year that we had, and that should solidly qualify us for the state's hold harmless for the second semester. So we had to hit a certain threshold to get our ADA, and that's really good news for us. And so we won't see a funding decrease to reflect the decline of ADA for the second semester like we were worried about. ESSER 2 is going to fund that hold harmless. And so last month we talked about ESSER 3, Part 1. The state has not released ESSER 3 funding, Part 2 of ESSER 3 funding, but they've released ESSER 2, which is $22.2 million for Waco ISD. But the state is going to use that money to offset that hold harmless. So we won't see all of those $22.2 million. We expect about half of that to go towards hold harmless and ADA. Then the last thing I wanted to mention this evening is that tomorrow is the last day for online STAR testing, and we don't have all of the official files from ETS, our state's testing vendor. We won't have those until the end of the month, but we do have our some of our raw score data. We have most of our raw score data. And I just want to make a note for the board this evening that that scores are down significantly. I don't think anyone would be surprised by that, given the circumstances that we faced and the challenges this year. And I'm hearing that scores are down across the state, but I don't have any data from the state, and I don't have any data from other districts at this time. So we do plan to come back in July and bring you all a full report. I just wanted to give you all a little hint of that this evening. And so we're concerned, and we're waiting to see how we compare to the state and other school districts. That's all I have.
Okay. At this time, would like to see if there's any items on the consent agenda. I've been asked to pull item D. We'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve consent agenda withholding item D.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion approves. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Item D, the bid award for serving lines and miscellaneous equipment for the child nutrition program.
I can get to it.
Okay.
Sherry's
So
good.
basically, I think I'm just remembering, the,
Microphone.
Microphone.
there's one thing on there I didn't understand, I guess for the benefit of our two new school board members and me, been here 10 years, and I still don't know the answer. Average points are awarded how? What is the meaning of that line on that evaluation? What is that?
In the past, we showed each evaluator's score, and the superintendent prefers to leave those scores anonymous and just show you their average of the evaluator scores.
Those are, okay, so that's just a subjective evaluation from individuals within the, okay.
There's an evaluation committee that scores,
Right.
and then they average them and say what you have is the average,
Okay.
instead of all the score sheets. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just,
Fair enough. Apparently, it's worth $16,000. So. But, okay. Thank you, Sherry. Sorry, I should have just asked that in front of voting on the, we get to vote again now. I move that we approve, what, item D of the consent agenda?
A second.
Okay. Item passes.
We have a motion with a second.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. On the item, we've got review and discuss the facilities long-range master plan. And I just wanted to take this time right now to acknowledge not only Jared, but Amy Jones, and just the process that you've led us through these past couple of months has been thorough, excellent, and I think that, we've pulled in almost 80 people from the community, and you've been able to really collect that information, that data, and kind of disseminate it and bring it down to actionable items. And so I just really wanted to thank you for really listening to our participants. And that also leads me to our committee members. I know that there are some present today, and I just, I think people didn't just give up their time. They gave up their knowledge, their perspective. And I think that honestly is the most valuable I think we could have collected or gathered, is to hear people's perspectives, to hear how people, what people think. And just, I think, I want to thank you not only for giving your time, but giving your perspective and your input, because that really is what we desired and what we wanted. So just wanted to take time right now to thank them. Yeah, so Chris, I know Chris Olson, as the former board member, but participant also in this this committee, I remember several times you speaking up, and I thought, wow, that's really poignant. That's a great perspective. And so I think that happened many times from different committee members as we would go through. I felt like everyone's voice really was heard and valued. And so I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Chris is just an agitator, so that's just right.
Yeah, so at this time, we will review and discuss the facilities long-range master plan. Jared?
Well, good evening, Board of Trustees, and thank you for having us here, and appreciate that it was a thorough process. And tonight we have the opportunity to bring to you the facility master plan and be able to present that to you. Joining me, of course, is Amy Jones, who you've met, and then Pooja Shetty as well, who is a member of our team here as we move forward. I'm actually going to hand it off to Amy here and let her jump in at the beginning as we talk through this.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, board members. We are really grateful for the opportunity that we've had since January to be working with you all, with your administration, and with the community on the long-range facilities plan. That time has been an opportunity to really present information, as you mentioned, also analyze data. We also did have an opportunity to get ideas and input from the community. The other thing that we did is we really engaged them with activities. Even though it was on Zoom, and we were on Zoom, we had an opportunity to virtually visit facilities. We had an opportunity to hear from departmental leaders within the district, and the community had a chance to see the demographic information presented and to give us feedback. We did that through some polling software systems through Zoom. We had an opportunity to do some Wordles for people to really tell us what they're thinking and feeling. And we even did some polling exercises through Zoom. So we really did engage in breakouts. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we had breakouts in every meeting where we got to go into some small group rooms on Zoom virtually and share ideas and communicate. So it really was a very engaging process that has resulted in what we think is a great plan and a roadmap to look ahead. The process of developing a long-range facilities plan is really about setting a vision. And so this plan not only sets a vision, but it identifies a path forward. If you will, it's a bridge from the past to the present to the future. And so that's what we'll be presenting to you tonight. This is a multi-year effort. and we understand that. And the elements of the plan that you'll be hearing more about included everything from demographics and the assessment of your facilities that was done by an outside entity, to educational suitability of your facilities, the vision that you have for academics in the district. We talked about the guiding principles of Waco ISD. We also talked about financial capacity and really implementation of the process and a process. So all of those components were a part of the effort. It was a lot of information, and the community members truly were remarkable, not only in their participation and attendance, but in their ideas and in their commitment to this school district. It was really an honor for us to work with all of them and with all of you. So that also was laid out through the process in a schedule of opportunities, if you will. The process identified, brought you to some options for a potential future bond. You can see here on this slide that there are a couple different scenarios that we're looking at. If you see where the star is located, that's where we are today. So depending on the action that the board takes going forward, there's a couple different paths that you can take with this information, leading you to a potential bond that can support the facility improvements that are identified. Again, I think you'll hear from Jared a lot of information that was developed, disseminated, and defined, and then also you'll hear kind of where the community sort of ended up with all this information and some recommendations that they'll be bringing to you through the process. So I just want to thank you for that opportunity. I'm going to actually turn it over to Jared so that he can walk you through the long-range plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Amy. And tonight, I'm going to try and take that 5 months of work that we did with the committee and the 2 years of overall effort and try and scrunch it down just a little bit here. So I would welcome you to read this document. It is available online. It's about 20 pages and really covers from beginning to end the thoroughness that we went, but hopefully succinctly gathers it together. And this, of course, starts with the participants. So not only have we been able to, I'll say, talk about the amazing group of participants that we had, that also includes you as the Board of Trustees and being able to provide input and feedback as we went through the process through those 5 months. But we were also able to engage the administration, stakeholders, including staff and administration through the process, to really engage and understand some of the data that's being put together, how that impacts them, be able to present that back to the community. So as we move forward, and I'm just going to step through the document, which pretty much parallels our process. It really starts with the executive summary that provides that overview. It's exactly what we're doing tonight, is providing that overview here as we move forward. You heard also very eloquently from Josh about the mission and vision of the district, and I just key in on those words as well, as an educational foundation that empowers and values all. So what your target and your goal is for the community is also what the community responded back to us with what they're looking for from a facility standpoint. So it's really great to hear that there's that synergy between the two sides. As we look at some of the defining key characteristics of the facility master plan and that information that we went through, from a demographics and capacity standpoint, we really looked at the enrollment over the projected enrollment over the next 10 years, how it remains relatively constant. We contrasted that with the capacity of the district to be able to understand, you know, do we have too much, do we have too little, how do we align that as we're looking at new future facilities. We dove into the facility assessment, the 1,800 pages of information. Very succinctly is that there's work that's needed to maintain the bricks and mortar of the school. I just always go back to that little red graph that you see on the screen, that there's a large initial need here, and then about 10 years it continues to increase as those major systems come and need replacement. As we look at educational suitability, it really gets into how the facilities are supporting our students, how they're supporting our teachers, and basically are they able to help give that best opportunity from kindergarten through 12th grade, and ultimately started to identify categories that those schools were able to fall within, and that graph on the bottom left starts then contrasting those about how the facilities are from a facility condition, the bricks and mortar versus how they are, started allowing us to hone in on schools that have the highest need and those that we can continue to maintain. As we move forward, that community input, when Amy talked about the small groups, the interaction, we really talked about the highest hopes and ultimately ended as well about, keeping the heart in Waco and being able to support it. You look at the great things there. There was lots of discussion about the school, the students, creating equity, being able to provide modern facilities, making sure that Waco ISD continues to compete with surrounding districts for students, for teachers, for those opportunities to make sure that they're college, career, military ready after high school. From the information that we gained through this process, we were able to develop 3 guiding principles, and I'll highlight those again here for the committee about the opportunity to create facilities throughout Waco ISD in support of the district's vision for academic excellence. So that's an opportunity to create 21st century learning environments that support individualized and personal learning, and ultimately are welcoming and sustainable overall. The second guiding principle was about ensuring equity across primary and secondary campuses for academic and co-curricular programs. There was a focus on all students being able to look at athletics, performing and fine arts, CTE, at the elementary school level, middle school level, and high school level, that across geographic and across grade level boundaries that we're making sure that we're supporting all students. And finally, the third guiding principle was about maintaining and protecting the community's investment in facilities while improving operational efficiency. And this is really about Waco ISD has continued to maintain and operate the buildings in a great way. How do we continue that process and support them in the long term, along with creating safe and healthy environments and minimizing the operational costs while maximizing the student opportunity. Finding that right balance here as we move forward. And so from the guiding principles, and as we started looking at projects, just as you mentioned, Ms. Kortewig, is that we got the perspective and got the time and the input from the community and really asked them to look through various lenses, and that's the lenses that they bring as individuals as community members, to be able to help provide input as the Community Advisory Committee to support the projects and how we move forward into implementation. So some of the keys, outcomes out of that effort, as we went through not only the district information, but as well as we looked at the high school, middle school, and elementary level, is the community found 97% support, very overwhelming support, in a Waco High School replacement campus. At the middle school level, 81% of the population supported replacement of Carver, Indian Spring, and Tennyson Middle School. And then as well, at the elementary school level, 83 supported the replacement and improvement of Alta Vista, Kendrick, and South Waco, and also looking towards the future. We started knowing, and along this, there's a lot that needs to be done, or a lot of opportunity for things to be done, but ultimately defining some guiding principles that could help direct the district, the board, as they continue to make future decisions within the district. As we look at that ability to make decisions and move forward, we did ask the community for feedback, specifically around priorities and looking at that long-term vision. So as we called it, we were setting the table and put a lot of things out there. It's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. You can't have everything on your plate. So asked them to start weighing some options. And so not only we identified some immediate priorities, which were the projects I'd identified, and also some long-term priorities about those strategies of how do we continue to move forward. The graphic there in the middle with the red and the blues were an identification of the priorities defined in between even those 4 projects. So not only do we have to prioritize the large group of projects, we even started looking at the inner level, ultimately identifying that Waco High School was ultimately the largest and the first choice, addressing Carver in Indian Springs was the second, followed by Tennyson as the third, and then addressing Kendrick, Alta Vista, and South Waco as the 4th priority. During that process, we were additionally able to hear from the financial planner from the district about potential bond scenarios moving forward. So they gave the same presentation you were able to hear in May, the community received as well. And the community was provided the opportunity to provide feedback. They basically were asked, what would you recommend the Board of Trustees consider from a bond amount moving forward? And you'll see the graph there at the bottom right. And there was overwhelming majority support for $375 million, and if not all the participants generally voted to support $300 to $375 million, knowing the impact that that would have on the tax rate, but also what it would mean from a month-to-month basis for the average homeowner in Waco ISD. Again, I would echo the comments. It's been an amazing process. We received great input through the Zoom meeting. Community was ultimately able to end on a recommendation here. Really repeats the things that we've heard here, ultimately that they're supporting academic excellence, working towards equity and maintaining the facilities, working on that long-term vision, and ultimately knowing that we would have to identify a priority, but really look at a bond program that would support $300 to $375 million worth of facilities and be able to move forward with that. So that is the facility master plan, and can't again say enough thank you to the district, thank you to the participants. Ended up, despite being virtual, it ended up a great process and moving forward and great input along the way. So the last one is then the next steps of the facility master plan. And you want to take?
Yeah, we're going to pause and take some questions. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As we take some time and go to the next steps, it's very appropriate, I think, to take an opportunity to express my thank you and appreciation to you, Jared, and Amy for the work that you've done to bring us to this point, as you've indicated. What?
1.8 million, but
I understand. I understand. But a tremendous amount of work has been done. There's still a tremendous amount of work to be done. And the process that you've taken us through with a diverse group of community members, which is the strength, I think, of this project going forward, will speak for itself as we go forward. In addition to that, though, as you've guided us through this process and have looked at our, vision statement, our mission statement, and our goals, and channeled those through the guiding principles, took some very, very creative level of expertise to get through that, I'll say that narrow channel, so to speak, with all the information you had to deal with. So I think the results culminating now at this stage speak for themselves as we go to the next steps. So just wanted to pause and say thank you for that. So
Honored to be part of the process.
So, Jared, because of some posting issues, didn't get to attend the last meeting. I'm just wondering about the conversation surrounding the prioritization of the projects. And the reason I bring it up is, we've got two schools, two of the four campuses involved are operating at or over their capacities, and neither one of them were prioritized as most important. I just wondered if that was sort of pointed out, and maybe from a construction point of view, there's a good reason for doing it in that order. I don't know. I'm not sure what but to me, if you've got, for instance, I think Tennyson's 140, 150 kids over capacity. That seems rather urgent, but obviously the group doesn't feel that way, and I'm okay with that. I'm just wondering about the conversation that went on.
So, I think to answer your question, multifaceted of, in terms of priority, is part of what we were looking at, or at least maybe what I was thinking about, was in essence, if you had to choose, which one of the four are not necessarily in priority in terms of schedule, but which are the ones that should receive the most effort up front. I think from a implementation standpoint, we can discuss whether or not the timing and how those work. What we've started looking at, this is kind of taking into the next step, is the middle schools could come online basically at the same time that the high school's coming online from a duration, is that they're much shorter. When you're talking high school, about 3 years of construction, from that time frame. 2 to 3 years of construction, middle schools are in the 2 range and elementaries are in a 1. So in terms of phasing out the bond program, you can address the needs. The end result is the same. So a lot of it was discussion about monies at that point.
Start a middle school sooner with a shorter lead time, it's going to finish soon.
That is correct.
So there is a trade-off there, but, okay, from a construction perspective, is there a better way to, I'm thinking, basically we have 3 middle school campuses now. One's, 15% over, and the other 2 are running at half their capacity. Is there a way to utilize, what's the best way to move those pieces around?
So part of what we've started talking about in the background is how that works in between the students. So part of what we've looked at is just if Carver and Indian Spring are the first campus to occur, there's opportunity that you could push all the students to Indian Spring as a temporary campus, rebuild Carver, which would free up that site, and that would be first, and then you'd basically move the students back at that point to the... The order of the projects didn't really speak to that, or that didn't speak to the order of the projects. I certainly see that as a good opportunity. So we never got into the discussion about schedule with the community committee, and that's part of what we can talk about here as we move forward as well with bond implementation.
Okay.
I do think the condition of Carver was an important part to why the community prioritized it first. I think that's why it was moved so high on the priority list, because of the conditions of the actual facility of Carver Middle School right now. So I definitely want us to keep that in mind, of the condition that Carver's in versus the condition that Tennyson's in. I understand the student capacity levels, but I think the reason why the community spoke up so strongly about Carver is because the condition that the facility itself is in, and kids are having to go to school there every year.
Jared, I think when you first started presenting, we started the meetings, I think the image that stuck in my mind from that report was the car. When you showed a car from 1950s versus a car from the year from 2000, it's the stark differences. And when we look at these buildings, we're looking at buildings that were built in the 1950s. And even if you have a home, there's pretty extensive renovations that need to be done to bring it up to standard. I know that, I recently got a new-to-me car, but it has all the modern conveniences that cars, of 2015 have, that my 2004 didn't have. My 2004 was leaking oil, only the radio worked, and it didn't have all the safety features that I needed, and I think that are important for me and my family, specifically my daughter, as I'm taking her to and from places. And so I think that image really stuck in my mind, and I thought, if we have that expectation for our own families, we should have that expectation for our students in this district. There are modern conveniences that newer buildings offer our students. There are safety features that these newer buildings offer our students. There are actual facility layout that actually are conducive to the new modern methods of educating students. So I think that really did stand out to me. And I think that, to Mr. Davis's point, I think I had looked up the maintenance records at Carver, and from January to March, there were 80 maintenance requests. And it's not a question of, hey, are we fixing it? Because yes, they're being answered every single time. They're being answered, but I think we have gotten to the point of we need to replace. And I think that pressure point is felt, but the pressure point of having 140 students over at Tennyson is also a big pressure point. We're starting to look at safety on both campuses, the safety of our students, optimal learning environments for both sets of campuses. And I think that's really what this process helped us see. And I think that I think we haven't done a bond in a while. Mr. Sykes is.
It's been a while.
And I think it's time that we start updating our facilities, start updating our schools for our students, because they deserve the best. And I am very appreciative of the diversity in this committee. And I think even, you can look at our board, and we've got diversity on the board. There is strength in that varied perspective. And so I just wanted to say that. I really do. Since it's been so long, there are so many needs. There are pressure points everywhere, and so this is the step in starting to alleviate that, or actually just bring our standards up to where they need to be. Thank you.
I guess another point as we move forward, talk about priorities, there's no question the level of community support with regards to the Carver aspect of the project. Waco High and Tennyson, from a priority standpoint, I would point out at that juncture that Tennyson is over capacity, and that's driven us to a very high number of portable buildings on the campus. And I think, from my perspective, our students deserve better than having a portable learning environment that they go to day in and day out with that large number of students. So I think the priorities, Carver, Waco High, and Tennyson, in my opinion, are well placed by the community, because those needs have manifested themselves, like our chairperson have said, in terms of the condition of the facilities. And I'm very hopeful that the community will allow us to do better for our students by supporting the projects as we go forward. So thank you.
And I second that. Thank you, too. I just think it's important that we keep in mind what the community has spoken over weeks in various meetings, and I think we need to keep that in the forefront of our decision-making process of what the community impact was, and make sure whatever decisions we're making, we're always referencing what the community told us, because it'll be very important.
Great.
Just to clarify, I just want to make sure some of these things were considered and talked about. I'm not interested in overruling the committee.
Well, they were considered and talked about, and they will still be considered and talked about, which is about the next steps as well.
Yes, do you want to go
Sure.
forward with the next steps?
And so rewinding back to the kind of the first slide or one of the slides that Amy presented was about next steps and the decision of what to do next. The board had identified, what was challenged to us is work through a process that would facilitate a November bond or a May bond. So ultimately, we'll look, for direction from the Board of Trustees to continue the process to support one of those choices. Just kind of keeping that in mind, August 16th is the day to call the election for November. So that's just here in a couple months. And then if it's a May bond, May of 21 bond, that would be in February of 21. So that gap between the two. So we stand ready to continue these discussions about priorities. There's a lot of detail in the thoroughness, lots of spreadsheets in the background that we're happy to share with the information. And then so based on the board's direction, we can work with Dr. Cannon and the administration to bring presentations and more content to support those decisions moving forward if the board so elects November at this point, or what it would mean from a February standpoint. In parallel, based on the board's direction or approval of a reimbursement resolution for Waco High School in March, we have been able to kick off that process. So we have had two design committee meetings to talk about the future of Waco High School. We were able to get through some user group meetings, and so we're starting to see what that project would look like here moving forward in the grand scale, overarching schemes and designs. And as we get to a good place, we'll look to come back to the board and present those schemes to the board as well for input, and knowing that the direction moving forward there.
You made that sound pretty simple, Jared. But their team has been really busy. They have met with athletics staff, fine arts staff, classroom teachers, special education, food service,
Science,
science,
performing fine arts.
performing and fine arts, admin. So they have really been getting input on what the users of a high school facility would want in those spaces, and that's been really important work, so thank you for that.
Been able to go on school tours to look what these facilities may look like, and there's apparently going to be a repeat event as well here soon. So,
Great, thank you.
any questions about next steps?
I think for the board, we'd want to know what else you need at this point. We're still working behind the scenes, so we'll be bringing you some more information on phasing, what that might look like. Certified tax values should come in soon this summer, and we'll share that information. But is there anything else you all want from the administration or our architects as we're continuing this process?
It's like we looked at and talked about last time, is the protection for our taxpayers, and especially our elderly community, and seeing what that burden will look like to those individuals.
Yeah, we have some information for you on that we'll share, yes. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
We'll look
Great, well, I'm
forward
gonna have Jared stay for the next item, so that I asked him if he would give you an overview of construction delivery methods before Cheryl comes up and presents this evening, so that you have more information in case you're not familiar with what those are that are options for us by policy.
Great. Yeah, so let's move on to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the project delivery method for Waco High School, and authorize the superintendent to issue requests for proposals and/or qualifications, and bring the recommendation rankings back to the board for approval.
41, 43.
So who's presenting that, Dr. McCann? Is
Jared to start with.
Jared to start with. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Ready for me to jump in?
Okay, go for it.
Great. Well, thank you again for having me here tonight. Welcome the opportunity to provide a high-level overview of construction delivery methods for school districts within the state of Texas. Want to be able to provide an opportunity, a framework for as you consider the decision tonight and some options. This process is really directed by Texas law that requires public entities to procure work in particular ways. And the ones that you see here on the screen are the 6 most predominant. I believe there's 7 in total that we see within the construction industry. You'll notice the first 2 are picked based on low bid or have qualifications about generally minor repairs or alterations. So method 3 through 6 are generally the most common that we see for large projects here as we move forward. But the differences between all of these are really about the relationships of the relationship between the owner, the architect, and the contractor, and there's different versions of those. So the top left one is what you see in a competitive bid or competitive sealed proposal. In this case, it's owner, architect, and engineer, and then general contractor. Then they hire the subcontractors. At the top right, you see construction manager at risk. It's very similar, but instead of a general contractor, it's a construction manager at risk in that case, and they hire the subs. And we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between GC and CMR on those. You have construction manager agent. This one is rarely used. The owner hires the architect, the construction manager agent, and then the subcontractors directly. Very different relationship. And then design build is where the owner hires a design builder, and then they hire the architect and they hire the subcontractor. So it's a different relationship there between the architect and the owner. But tonight, generally we see there are 2 main procurement methods that are used generally throughout Texas in the vast majority. And the first one of those is competitive sealed proposal. So as before, the owner hires the architect in this situation directly. It works through a traditional design, bid, build process. So we would work through the entire design process. We would put together a set of documents and then send it out publicly for bid at that point. It would go to multiple general contractors for them to look at, and each one of the general contractors would submit two things: price and qualifications. And that's really important because it allows the district to set a rubric and ultimately select the best value for the district. So it's not the lowest price in this case, it's who represents the best value. So you could talk about their experience, how many facilities that they've done here in Waco or for a school district. So you get that additional information. And again, they hold the subcontracts in this point. In contrast, construction manager at risk, again, the owner would hire the architect and engineer, but this time as the architect is working through the design process, most often the owner, and we recommend as early as possible, would hire the construction manager at risk. And so that allows during the design timeframe to provide input on constructability, on construction timeframes, we're able to get subcontractor input a lot of the times, and then as well estimates directly from the general contractor during that time frame. That's really important in today's economy, as well as then as we talk about a phased renovation or addition. Just for example, right now, in what is normally a lead time for bar joist is 2 to 3 months, we're hearing up to 10 months for bar joist. And so that is directly affecting the ability to construct projects. So if we get that input, we're able to make a shift in design to keep projects running smoothly at that point. So at the beginning of the process, you do hire the construction manager at risk, but it is through a competitive process. So they, again, are submitting a price for their CMR fee and their qualifications, and so you select the best value. And then as they're going out to bid, they are then again competitively bid the subcontractors. So again, it is entirely competitive process from beginning to end on this one. As we go through some pros and cons of these two methods in the competitive sealed proposal, and this is in the case with CMR as well, there's a predetermined wait for qualifications. On the competitive sealed proposal, that happens when you select that contractor after the design phase is complete. In the CMR, it not only happens with the contractor, but you can also pick the best value of subcontractors as well. You're able to provide input at that level. Competitive sealed proposal is one of the slower delivery methods because traditionally you've not only finished the design, you go out to bid, you go through an interview process, you call references, and then you award the work and move forward, as well as the design has to be completed as one package. So you have to have everything ready together and you ready, set, go, and you go that route. In the construction manager risk process, you can achieve a faster schedule. You have the opportunity to release multiple bid packages, which they identify a price as a guaranteed maximum price or a GMP. You'll start hearing that word quite a bit. And ultimately, you could send out an early utility package, a phase one package, or early procurement of the steel joist if that's the right choice, but it allows you to adapt to the construction economy. In the end, that construction manager at risk with the GMP is financially responsible for the cost and schedule. So that it is a guaranteed maximum price. It will cost no more than this. And then our responsibility along with the district is to ensure that they meet that schedule and that cost throughout and not exceed that construction value. Otherwise, that's their risk from that standpoint. That's a very quick overview of construction procurement. Can talk about the other options if you'd like, but would welcome any questions that you have on those two methods.
Questions? So we're recommending the CMR for Waco High School as the construction delivery method this evening. Due to the size and scope of this project, 375,000 square feet, I think I heard Jared say, for Waco High School, and this would give us the opportunity to bring in the contractor early in the process to help us with design and all the intricacies of the project.
Correct. We see this one potentially having multiple phases because it's an occupied campus. How do we work through and make sure that they have enough room to build? How do we make sure, and we'll work through and make sure that they have enough room to still attend school because it will be an active campus.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, with those comments being made, I will move that we approve the selection of the construction manager at risk construction delivery method, and authorize the superintendent to issue a request for proposals and/or qualifications as appropriate for the project. Select a committee to evaluate and rank the proposals and bring recommendation rankings back to the board for approval as presented.
Okay, we have one motion. And a second, Mr. Catania. Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, recommendation passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have review and discuss the Texas Association of School Boards compensation and stipend salary. I believe, who is presenting that? Jennifer? Oh, this is via Zoom. Hi, welcome. I forgot that this is a Zoom call. Well, welcome. We're excited to hear your presentation.
Can't hear.
We can't quite hear you. If you could keep talking, and we'll be working on the audio on this end. Okay, we still can't quite hear you, but we will. Sorry, we're still working on that. Thank you. With that, I'll just say I was looking through the stipends, and I appreciate it. I think with COVID that happened upon us, I think that has been probably one of the most challenging years for our teachers and administrators and our staff. And I do appreciate the administration going through and looking at our stipends and our steps and salaries, because I think it's really important that teachers and administrators know that we are looking at that. And so.
Thank you. I don't know where Dr. Gutierrez, there she is, Dr. Gutierrez is, but we started this work last year with TASB. They did a review of all of our salaries. This year we asked them for the second review, which is maintenance of that plan that they helped us with last year. And then we also asked them to look at stipends this year, so that there's another layer that's been added for you all this year. Jennifer, you want to try again? Not
Yeah,
yet.
I'm here, so I'm not sure if you can hear me, though.
We can hear you now.
Perfect. We can hear you.
We're
Yay.
ready. Thank you very
awesome.
much.
Can you see my screen? Can you
Yes,
see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, well then we will go ahead and get started so that way you can finish the rest of your items this evening. So I want to thank everyone for allowing me to come back in this year. Last year, we, as Dr. Kincannon said, we did do a pay review and an update of your system. My colleague Zach was with me, and we also did the staffing review. This year, we did solely compensation, and so we did the pay system maintenance, and then we also did the stipend review this year, and we will briefly talk about that this evening. Please ask questions, stop me if you have any questions, or you can save them to the end. It doesn't bother me either way. I'm pretty informal when it comes to that. So this year, as I said, we went through the pay maintenance process, and it's somewhat similar to the pay review process, but really we're not going to dive as deep into the data this year, because we know that a lot of our market matches are very similar to last year. We kind of know where Waco is whenever we're looking at our compensation system. So this year we were really just looking at tweaking, making sure that our structures look sound, that if there's any outliers in the pay, that we go ahead and address that we continue in the goals that we had last year with the review. And so that's what we did. And so the maintenance process does look similar to the review, but as I said, it's a little more high level, I guess. So we do go through the data collection process. We contacted the district. We had our normal kickoff discussion to talk about any strategic goals that the district had for this year for the pay system. We requested data from the district, received all of that data. Once we receive that data, I actually have an analyst that works with me on the project. Catherine is her name. She's done a lot of work on this also. But we go through and we clean up the data and we start making those market matches. We benchmark for about 140 jobs through our TASB salary survey, and that's where we receive a lot of this information. We also look at non-school markets, and we look at some statewide values and things like that, and we'll talk about that once we get to our market comparison. So we're looking at matching those common jobs to make sure that we have the most accurate compensation data to recommend whenever we make adjustments to employee pay as well as your structures. And then we go ahead and we build the models for improvement. So we're aligning those pay structures, again, to make sure they're competitive around midpoints. We're adjusting in the employee pay. We're looking for internal and external equity. And so we address all of that through our project this year. And just as a review, remember that when we're looking at our pay system in a school district, we are looking at certain objectives. So we use our pay to recruit employees. We want to offer really competitive entry rates. We want to have competitive pay for those new hires. We really want to be able to recruit the best talent to our district. We also want to be able to pay for the job value, so we don't want to necessarily overpay for a job. We also don't want to underpay, so we want to make sure that we are trying to be around the midpoint, or what we call the market value for that job. We also use our pay system to retain our employees. So we want to make sure that we're advancing the pay to market rates in a timely manner, that it's not taking employees years upon years to receive that market rate or that midpoint, or to meet that midpoint rate. We also want to make sure that when we're giving pay increases, that they're pay increases based on the market, they're competitive to market, and that we're really thinking about those things such as like cost of living, living wages and things like that when we're looking at our pay system. And then ultimately, and this of course is one of the main jobs of the school board, we want to control costs, and we want to make sure that any compensation increases, any budgeting for our compensation and our salary plan are based on available budget. And so making sure we're staying within those parameters. When we're looking at our market, we want to make sure that we have those control pay structures. So as you see those rectangles, those are basically your pay ranges or your pay grades. And so, again, as I said, we are trying to align around those market values. So we have the bullseye there. It's a good analogy. But obviously the middle would be the actual market value, and then we go out from there. We align the jobs within those pay ranges. We're looking at spreading your employees out by experience, over time, things like that. And so you don't want everybody compressed at the bottom. You also don't want them all compressed in the middle. So really having a nice spread and aligning jobs as we go along. And so those are all the things that we're looking at to help the district maintain what we worked on last year, maintaining it this year. And so again, the market rate is intentionally set. We look at the market value, and we also look at district goals. Sometimes we might have a market value, but we kind of force a hierarchy, so that way we have career pathways, we have ways for people to be able to promote in the district, so that way we can work on retention, things like that. Sometimes for single incumbent jobs, we want to recruit that really desired talent, maybe like your head football coaches or maybe an assistant superintendent. So, we really look at goals and strategic plan as well as the market value. So it's kind of a hybrid. We also look at range parameters, and we set them to limit the employee pay variance. So again, we have a mid, a minimum, and a max. And so we want to make sure that employees are within the minimum and the maximum, that we don't have too many outliers above, and that there's no one below that pay range minimum. We want to, try to pay all employees near the target rate, but in actuality, not every employee is going to be 100%. There could be lots of reasons for that. It might be experience. It might be lots of different things. And then the target rate is adjusted regularly. So we're always wanting to look every year how the market shifts, where those target rates are, if we have some volatile jobs. So when we think about maybe like technology jobs, things like that, we do see that market shifts pretty readily for those jobs. So every year we're just looking at target rates, making sure that we're adjusting and that we're keeping pay competitive in all pay groups. So moving on to the actual information for Waco. So the list of market districts is very similar to what we used last year for our matches, but this year we did add a few districts in to compare to stipends. And what we were looking for your stipend review are those districts that completed our salary survey, but that are in your UIL competition range. And so we wanted to make sure like Cedar Hill, and it looks like Mansfield and a couple others in there that were matching those people or those districts to, as well as just your other market. Now for Waco, because of where you're located, we always think about geographically, you compare to a lot of different types of districts. You compare to some very large districts compared to your enrollment. You compare to some very, smaller districts. And so overall, you have a varied market. But this list here takes into account some of those larger places where you might be competing for some of your talent as well as your local area. CASB also pays for two third-party vendors for other market sources. So when we're looking at our non-school market, we actually pay for Economic Research Institute and Comp Analyst. And so we use these values for your non-school jobs. So it could be technology, it could be some of your skilled trades, it might even be some of your business or clerical type positions, and we use it either for those direct non-school matches or we combine it with the local market to have a combined value to ensure that we are comparing those type of jobs against the non-school market, because we know that school districts do compete with the non-school market and we want to make sure that rates are competitive. The first group that we look at is we look at your teachers, and so we like to look at demographics. We kind of do a check of this every year. We don't dive as deep into some of this information with maintenance, but we still want to make sure that, we address any goals that the district may have. So at the time of our data collection or the snapshot, there was about 1,000 teachers in the district, give or take, and you can see the distribution there of the experience of current teachers. And so you do have a large portion of your teachers in the 1 to 5, 6 to 10 year range, which is a good thing in a lot of ways, if we kind of consider that the sweet spot up to about 15 years. Your teachers are trained, they're getting more years under your belt, and then they're in that sweet spot to where they really have best practices. You've invested in them as a district, and you're really wanting to keep that group. The other thing that we always look at is we look at, okay, well, how many teachers are near retirement years? What are those things that, we need to consider with those leaving the profession and then bringing some in? And so you do see that you have, about 57 teachers, give or take, at that 30-plus year mark. So you may have some attrition here and there to bring in new teachers. Looking at your newly hired teachers this year, at the time of our data collection, you had about 140 teachers hired to the district, and about 64% of those new teachers are brand new to the profession. They have 0 years of experience, and so they're bringing new blood and new energy, but maybe not all of the skills that they need as those new teachers. And so that is an area, those teachers we're going to have to invest a little bit, put some training time in with those particular teachers. But because you are attracting a lot of new teachers to your district, we want to ensure that, your starting rates are strong and that you are providing the compensation for those teachers to stay in your district. The other thing that we look at is our other teachers, who are we also attracting to the district? And you can see there that you are attracting teachers that have, more years of experience, and that's a good thing also. If this is somewhere where you're, maybe district goals are, we want to have more, more experienced teachers, then, compensation is one of those places that we can make some adjustments and making sure that we're providing, those great salaries to attract those people to your district. So here's the market for Waco. This last year with COVID, and then the year before with the 86 legislature, the market's kind of been everywhere when we're thinking about pay. And so what we saw this last year is that our market was pretty lean. In some areas, it was pretty flat. So for example, the San Antonio area, they really were about 0%. Their market didn't really shift. But in our Dallas areas, our Houston areas, it shifted about 1 to 2%. With that being said, we hope and we are anticipating that the market's actually going to shift more this year. And so we are considering that whenever we are working with our districts that we want to make sure, if the budget is there and the funds allow, that we try to give those pay increases that maybe we couldn't give in the past couple of years. A lot of districts really struggled to give the, pay increases this last year. There was just a lot of, fear and reticence there because we weren't sure what the pandemic was going to look like. The year before, some districts were able to give a ton or a very large increase, and there were other districts that really weren't able to do that with the 86 legislature. So again, the market has been kind of all over the place compared to what we typically see. In a typical year, when we would say things are typical, we would say that the market shifts about 2%. What we're hearing this year is that a lot of districts are trying to give at least a 2%, maybe a 3%, maybe somewhere in between. We feel like at the beginning of this compensation season that a lot of districts were like, nope, we're probably not going to give anything. But now we're hearing, I think, with the release of ESSER funds and just, everybody's kind of taking a little bit of a sigh of relief after COVID, and we've got vaccines and things like that now, that there is going to be funding there to be able to give teachers raises. So that's what we're hearing just across the state. Looking at the graph in numbers, you can see that Waco does a great job with teacher pay. You can see that your starting year salaries are about 7% above market, or $3,100 above the market median. Remember, the median is just the middle of your market, that group that we talked about. And as you move up in the schedule, so towards the 20-year mark, you do see that, it decreases and it becomes closer to market. But even at the 20-year mark, where you're 1% below, you're only $450 below. And so what we did just strategically with this plan this year, or with maintaining this year, is we did add a few adjustments at that 15-year, 20-year mark to make sure that market competitiveness is maintained with those years. So we did address that strategically. But overall, kudos to the board as well as the district administration that you have prioritized teacher pay and that it continues to be strong. The other thing that we look at, and this is different from the stipend review that we're going to discuss here shortly, but this is actually just the common teaching area stipends that we benchmark for every year. And so we look at a handful of stipends that are provided to teachers. And what we say basically with those teaching area stipends, if base pay is very strong, there may not be a need to necessarily give a very large stipend in these areas. However, if there are recruitment and retention issues, if you're really struggling to keep those teachers, find those teachers, then we would say, keep your stipends high, maybe adjust your stipends as needed. So the ones that are offered by Waco are the secondary math and science, the special education for general resource teachers, as well as those teachers in the most challenging assignments for your self-contained classrooms. But it may not even be just behavior. It could be your life skills. It could be all your different levels of those real challenging assignments. Bilingual. And this year we've actually broken ESL into two different stipends. So that way we can see where districts are paying just for the general ESL, and then for those districts that actually have the dual language program and they are providing a stipend for that program. That is something that we've done different this year than we've done in the past. We just wanted to get a good read on the ESL stipends. And so you can see there that, definitely for secondary math and science that, Waco is strong with that stipend, definitely above the market median there. And then you can also see that you've matched for special education, general resource, you're above for your self-contained, your bilingual, and your ESL stipends. So overall, you're competitive. You offer competitive base salaries for your teachers. You offer competitive teaching area stipends. So this is a good thing. So we would not give any recommendations right now for the teaching area stipends. Moving into your non-teaching groups, we first look at our exempt, which is basically our administrative professionals in the district. And so when we look at market for this particular group, we actually break it down into three subgroups. So we look at central administration, campus administration, and then your professional group. When we're looking at central administration, we're really looking at your directors and above. And so when we do that, we're looking at market that is looking at statewide values there. We want to compare to the state because, like I said, your market is kind of all over the place. You compare to a lot of different sizes of markets. And so when we're looking at single incumbent jobs, we know that they typically have more streamlined skills, typically have a lot of experience. You're looking for a certain fit for those jobs. And so we want to look at a larger data set whenever we're comparing that particular group. Campus administration is solely your principals and assistant principals that we're comparing. And then your professionals are any other professional support in the district. So it could be your special education related services. It might be your nurses. It could be your librarians. It could also be your business professionals, your IT professionals, anyone else that would basically fall into that group that is considered an exempt position. As I said before, though, we do not benchmark for every single job that you may see in a school district, but we do benchmark for many. And so we are to have really good comparisons for those groups. Overall, your exempt salaries are strong to market. We say that, the competitive range really is within 90% to 110% of market. And so anything within that range we would consider competitive. We like to be around that target 100% or above for most jobs, but, even within like the 96%, we would still consider that central administration is competitive to market. Your pay grade midpoints, what we're looking at there is we're looking at your pay structures, and you have strong pay structures. We worked on those last year to make sure that they were strong. We shifted where they needed to be. So that way all of your employees are basically within that pay structure. They're fitting in, and they're being paid strong also. We also look at your non-exempt, which is basically your hourly groups, and so that's the other groups that we are looking at. It's basically the same type of comparison philosophy. With most of your non-exempt groups, we look at local and non-school market combined for a lot of jobs. It's either local for like your true school district jobs, for example, like a PEAMS clerk or maybe like a principal secretary. But a lot of times you see a lot of combined market for jobs, such as, your trades, some of your business clerks and things like that. But again, if you're thinking about that competitive range overall, your employee pay to market is strong to market, especially in your instructional support. Instructional support would be like your aides and your non-exempt people that work basically with kids on campuses to help support there. Your auxiliary also is very strong with 7% to market. The other thing that we look at with our hourly groups is we look at their pay grade minimum or their starting rates. And so we want to make sure not only are we paying our employees, they have a strong structure so that way the pay is moving as it needs to be, but also are we attracting those employees? Are we having those starting rates to really bring them into our district when we do need to? And even though we've had some challenges this last year, we as in school districts, with some of our hourly positions because of just the condition of the world, overall, your starting rates are very strong. So hopefully you are attracting those people to your district. The other piece that we did this year that we did not do part of the review last year, we had agreed to do this this year, was the review of the extra duty stipends. And overall, Waco's doing a great job using best practice with your extra duty stipends and paying stipends across with your employees. We were really pleased once we were able to get into the data and to clean everything up to see that you are paying those flat rate stipends is what we would recommend, that you do not pay, extra days, just the competitive flat rate stipend, and that your stipends are pretty competitive to market. A lot of them were very close, if not matching, and some were above, and that's what we want to see. Whenever you have your employees that are doing those extra duties, they're working with kids or doing all of those extra hours, whether it be in athletics, performing arts, some of your academic competitions and groups, we want to make sure that they are being paid, competitively. Where they were not being paid competitively, we did make adjustments. When we're looking at extra duty stipends, we actually don't look at percentages, we look at dollar differentials. And the reason for that is because there are smaller amounts. We also see just variation across the state in the type of stipends that are offered in school districts. Everybody does something different. However, we do benchmark for certain ones. And so it's your common athletic sports, football, basketball, so on and so forth. Some of your performing arts, such as cheer, your band, your choir, orchestra, so on and so forth. And then on your academic side, we're looking at that UIL, maybe robotics, along that line. So when we're looking at athletics, you're $26 below market overall. You're benchmarking for about 31 different stipends. That is actually pretty on point there. There were only a handful of athletic stipends that needed some adjustments. We also did just talk with the administration about how stipends are being paid and giving some recommendations around that. Your performing arts, however, are a little bit lower at about $834 below. And so we did make some adjustments there with some of your benchmarks to ensure that they are being competitive. You know, performing arts are one of the areas where sometimes it does look a little bit different, but if you're really looking to try to recruit that great band director or that great choir director or dance sponsor, then you want to make sure that you do have competitive stipends. And then your academics are strong at about $505 above market. And so your sponsors for like UIL and some of those other academic programs, decathlon, things like that, are being paid well. So our recommendations, and this is very similar to what we recommended last year, we recommend that you implement the pay structure adjustments to align with market. So as I said, last year we kind of recreated everything, we rebuilt things. This year we're maintaining. And the way that we do that is we go in and we adjust structures to ensure that they're competitive and that employees are, again, scooped within and moving across the pay grades as we would like to see them. So your four structures are your teachers, which are actually your teacher hiring skills, what you would use, and then you have your pay ranges for your administrative professional, your paraprofessional, and your auxiliary. We would say that you want to make sure to have improve any starting salaries. So where there were a few one-offs where maybe starting salary was not as strong as we'd like to see it, we tried to move that up. We also adjusted a little bit with some of your hourly that needed it to have stronger salaries at the start. We aligned midpoints with market. So again, we matched those common jobs and we aligned there. And then we aligned the jobs within the structures. Last year, we did a lot of movement and changes to the pay plans and things like that because we were doing a deep review. This year, there were very few pieces that we needed to change because we have a lot of that in line already. And that's the beauty of maintenance. We also recommended 3 models to the district upon request, and so we recommended the 1%, 2%, and 3% for all job groups. And when we say percent, what we're saying is for teachers, we would recommend a general pay increase, or the GPI, calculated as a percentage of the market median salary. And so every continuing teacher would receive the amount at that percentage for their pay increase. And then for your other pay groups, the GPI is calculated off the percentage of the employee's pay grade midpoint. And that is just basic compensation structures for best practice. We also recommend some adjustments. So once the general GPI or the general pay increase or the GPI is applied, some employees still need their pay adjusted a little bit. So as I talked about, we did make a few adjustments to your pay ranges. So after we apply the GPI, if there's any employee that's still below the minimum of the pay range, we would give them 1% more to move them into the pay range. And what that does is that ensures that your employees that are in your district are going to make more than anyone that's newly hired into your district with the same number of years of experience. So we just don't want that to be flip-flopped, and that's an internal equity piece. We also gave a few targeted adjustments for select pay groups. So we were looking to see any jobs that are below that 10% of midpoint, that competitive range, we were going to give them another 1% to move them closer to midpoint. For your educator career pathway adjustments, so these are talking about your counselors, some of your instructional specialists, coordinators, obviously your assistant principals, those people that are in the educator career pathway, we want to make sure that those individuals' pay is at least 2% above the teacher rate, so with the same years of experience. So that way we are incentivizing that those teachers to go into leadership roles, and we are paying them just a little bit more than what they would be making in the classroom. And then there are just, for the auxiliary group, we did do some placement scale adjustments for one of the pay grades. And what this does really is we apply a placement scale that divides the number of years of experience and it spreads them out basically to get to midpoint. And this alleviates compression. So when we have a lot of our employees compressed down at the bottom of the pay grade, we want to try to spread them out as much as possible, and that way we place the placement scale. And really that helps address morale issues. It addresses anybody that's maybe, making very close to another employee that they've been there for several years, and some of those conversations that are going on. Recommendation 4 is around the extracurricular duty stipends that we talked about. So we would recommend that you increase stipends that are below market median pay values and decrease any stipends above market median to better align with market pay. The stipend plan that we've recommended is really for future use. And so we would say that you would consider to hold harmless any employees that those stipend changes would affect right now. We don't want anyone to lose pay because we are recommending new stipends. We would say hold harmless. You could choose to do that for a limited amount of time or just until that person moves on through attrition. And so we have talked with the HR department about what that would look like also. We also say to improve pay equity and budget management by implementing strong pay discipline for employees paid above the maximum of their pay grade. And so we do make that recommendation, but every school district's very different about those employees that once the general pay increase is applied, their pay is above the maximum of that range, or maybe higher than the number of years on your hiring schedule. And so what we would say is that's definitely a local decision, but it really needs to be based on your values as a board and as a district administration. A lot of superintendents and a lot of school boards are like, nope, every single employee is going to receive the general pay increase. It doesn't matter if they're, outside of the range. It's not really their fault that they're there, so we're going to give that. There's also other strategies that can address giving employees a certain amount of money. You could do a one-time payment. You could do half. I mean, there's all different types of strategies. But we would say, we used to be very, hard-nosed about this, but we've kind of relaxed, over the past couple of years that, we do believe employees need to receive something, but what that looks like is definitely a local decision. And last but not least, we say to continually review the compensation plan every year, update as needed to maintain market competitiveness. We were able to do that for you this year, but at some point that may want to change and be an internal decision, and that's fine too, and we can give the district tools to help do that over time. So I'm sure what everybody's thinking about are the costs. So our first cost here, our cost model, is the 1% as recommended. And so this is an overview of what it would cost. And so we're looking at the general pay increase that would be 1% for all of these employees, and then the adjustments. And those are all of the adjustments that we talked about, whether that's adjustments to the teacher hiring schedule or those other adjustments that we discussed, and what the total estimated increase would be. For every single one of these models, your extra duty stipends, the increases will be the same because those are on flat, it's a flat amount. The 2%, which comes out to be about a 2.5 because you do have about 0.4% in adjustments, and then 3% is very similar at 3.5. And so these are 3 models. Obviously these are estimates, and so, we can provide other things if the district needs it or if the school board wants it, and that's perfectly fine too. So that is basically all I have for my slides, but I am happy to go back to slides and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, Mr. Sykes?
Ms. Barton, thank you for your presentation. Very comprehensive and a lot of very excellent points raised. I'm curious on recommendation 5. When you refer to implementing strong pay discipline for employees paid above the maximum of their pay grade, I'm wondering, when you regularly align midpoints with the market, does the maximum automatically increase when you do that alignment with the market at the midpoint?
It does if we adjust your structures. And so when we're looking at your structures, let's say if we move the minimum up, so maybe we want to move the starting rate for like one of your hourly groups to $10 an hour, $11 an hour, we're also going to move the maximum at that point. So yes, if we're trying to adjust your structures around that midpoint, we are going to move the minimum and the maximum up. And we try to do both because we want your pay range to stay symmetrical. Okay. And that's the key. So basically having the same offset on both sides.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mrs. Jennifer. We appreciate it. Very thorough.
That was short and sweet. All right, if you have anything else, please just let me know. Otherwise, you all have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next we have announcements. Mr. DeBeer?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Tomorrow morning, we get to celebrate our 2021 retirees with a special breakfast ceremony. I know many of you are joining us for that, and we're very much looking forward. It's a group that together has a combined more than 900 years of service in public education, so certainly quite the milestone, with some contributors contributing a larger chunk of that 900 years than others. Tomorrow night and Saturday night, we have what are absolutely the highlights of the year for me, and those are our graduation ceremonies, with Waco High graduating at 7 p.m. at the stadium tomorrow night, and the University High School class of 2021 graduating Saturday night at the stadium, also starting at 7 p.m. Next week, on June 16th, we'll be back in the boardroom at 11:45 a.m. for an intergovernmental meeting with the City of Waco City Council. Then on June 19th, there are a number of activities happening across the community to celebrate Juneteenth, but that includes the 2021 Juneteenth Parade, which kicks off from Heritage Square at 10 a.m. and will include our coaches, our principals, and I believe a number of our board members as well. So thank you for being a part of that community celebration and representing us there. Then later in the month, we're really excited that we have community partners who step up to protect the health of our employees throughout the pandemic, and they're also stepping up to protect the health of our students. In partnership with the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District in Ascension Providence, we'll be kicking off student vaccination clinics with a first dose clinic coming towards the end of the month. And in the next couple of days, we'll have those finalized details and be sharing with our families how those families that have students age 12 and up can sign up to get a first dose later this month. So we're really excited and very appreciative of the way that our partners have come together to make that possible. So, thank you.
Thank you. That's exciting to have that available to our students. I think that's a unique opportunity and just, yeah, helps kind of put people at ease. So, okay, that is it. Then we are adjourned.